Hello everybody, welcome back. What's new with me, you ask? Well, I just came back from a summer tour that lasted about 3 months, and it was the first tour since pre-2020 that I toured with an electric guitar. So prior to this, I toured with Enya acoustic electric guitars, and I loved those. You could see more about that up there. And I still prefer those acoustic electric guitars, especially for touring, but they're also great sounding for recording. But I digress. This time, I wanted to tour with my electric. Particularly, I wanted to tour with old Stella. She looks different from last you saw her, I know. Again, check that video out. Not only did I want to tour with my electric again, I wanted to tour with a wide variety of sounds. I didn't want to be limited to anything. I also didn't really want to break my back carrying around a pedal board. But that is where the Ampero Mini from Hotone comes in. I've been a customer of Hotone's for years now. They made the Ampero Vow Press, I believe it's called. It is my favorite wah pedal. It is the perfect size for any pedal board, which is ideal for any working class musician. We need the space. We need the real estate on our pedal board, and they understood the assignment. We also want it to sound great, so they killed that. I love that wah pedal, but I needed to get my hands on not just a wah pedal, I needed to get my hands on a full multi-effects unit. Well, I've had this unit right here for about 3 months now, and I'd like to share some of my findings about it with you. So we're going to divide this video into 3 parts. First part is where we're going to talk about the technical aspects and specifications. We're not going to get into too much of the detail of that. You can just check that out online on the manual. In the second part, we're going to run through the sounds, the different sound settings, and how I use them. That's going to be fun. In the third part of the video, we're going to break down some of the use cases, some pros and cons, and give you some commentary about this effects pedal. I'm excited. Let's get to it. First of all, I mean, look at this thing. It is compact. Don't mind all the pedals and stuff. I've got it plugged in so I could show you some of the sounds later. It is ultra compact, which is super essential to me because what I was looking for, I wanted it to be no headaches. I just wanted to go to the show, set my stuff up, pack it all up in one bag, and I was able to fit this beautiful pedal into my gig bag. That in and of itself is worth it simply because it saves you the headache. But don't let its size fool you. It's got a lot of features. So for starters, it's got a powerful dual-core DSP platform. It's basically like a computer, like Intel. They make their own sort of motherboards with the dual-core chips and stuff like that. It's kind of like that. Super powerful. The signal-to-noise ratio is about 112 dB, which is pretty huge because it means you're going to get the fullest amount of tone coming through your speaker. It's got 24-bit signal processing at 44.1 kilohertz. That's better than CD quality. That's certainly better than the music you hear on Spotify and all your other platforms. Again, very high quality sound. It's got a dynamic, full-colored 800 by 480 touchscreen that's super easy to interact with, and it actually is fairly bright, so you can see what your settings are and what you want to switch in the daylight if you had a gig outside, let's say. Super clutch. But that makes tweaking any of your presets super easy right on the module itself, and scrolling is easy as hell too, so love it. Plus you could customize the different display modes, the UI color, and the language, so it's really sort of meant for you to tailor to your specific use case. It comes preloaded with 199 effects. Take a minute, absorb that. It comes with a lot of amp modelers, a lot of amp head modelers, combo modelers. There's also next-gen mic positioning features and parameters, as well as different mic type, you know, like different mics that you can mic a cab with. It's all in this box, as well as pedal simulations of your favorite drives, distortions, filters, delays, reverbs, modulators, you name it. And lastly, it has 198 presets. 99 are factory patches, the other 99 are user patches for you to edit how you see fit. So with all that techno nerdy mumbo jumbo out of the way, let's get into the sounds and how I use this pedal. So first of all, right off the bat, you are introduced to the pedal through its welcome preset, which is basically welcome to Ampero. Now it's basically kind of like a hot rodded California style amp, very distorted, very sexy. But I tweaked it to my specifications and my preferences, and you get something that sounds a little like this. Now, I'd like to mention that with that particular preset, it came, I believe, with a sort of JCM kind of head, a Marshall modeler. What I did was I switched that out for a dual rectifier. And there's a few dual rectifier models here. So basically, right off the bat, that's the very dual rectifier setting, right? But if I were to change that head to, say, a JCM Marshall 800, which I believe here is called Marshall 800. And now we see that that Marshall is in the settings, and now you'll hear the difference. So that just gives you an idea of the high gain amp kind of situation they have going on here. But they also have a lot of different kind of experimental sounds, if you will. One of my favorites that I really enjoyed was this kind of like organ sound thing. You could get really, really crazy with that and have a lot of fun with that too. And also, the cool thing about it is you can mix and match a lot of different amp and distortion pedal kind of sounds. Like, for example, I have like a really sort of 80s crunched pedal for this. So yeah, super fun, super fun. That's a FET boost, basically going through a diesel amp. And that's all going through an Urban 4x12 cabinet simulator. I'm not sure what the Urban 4x12 is. Again, you can check the manual. They list down not only the names of all their preset and modelers, but also what they're sort of inspired by, which is pretty cool. And they have, again, like super cool like effects that are very, very out there, which I love because it means you're not just limited to using it in one way. This isn't just a performance vehicle. It could also be a tool that you can use in your recordings. Case in point, if you really want to have a crazy big blowout ending in a song, you can just go. I'm just having fun here, giving you ideas. Now again, I'd like to also mention, because while I was performing, like I said on tour, I wanted no thrills, no frills, no hassle. I wanted to go directly DI with my guitar into a PA system and be confident that the sound was going to be great, and you know what? It was great. Now obviously you'd have to make some iterations from your first attempts at customizing these sounds according to what like a PA's natural resonance and speaker volume sound would be, but once you get that more or less down, you're golden. And I will also say that for all of these shows, more often than not, the sound engineer themselves would come up to me and compliment me on my tone, and then they'd be blown away when they'd look down expecting to see a pedal board, just seeing this pedal. Because the sound speaks for itself. You don't have to showcase a pedal board if what you need is all right here. They were impressed with it, I was happy when I was performing, and that's all that matters. And again, like that last effect that I just showed you, phaser of some sort, that's crazy. I personally wanted to see if this pedal can be worked with right out of the box. No manual necessary, no additional programs. Everything I did, I edited right through the touchscreen itself. I'm happy with it. But do not think that this pedal can only handle distortion or heavy amp sounds. It could actually handle clean sounds fairly well. And beautifully, might I add, considering you could add on top of these amps, delay pedals and reverb pedals and tweak them all to your liking and stuff. So let me show you what I mean. Again, that's like a country kind of esque sound. And that's actually the newest sound that I've recently put into that pedal. I'm still tweaking it, but pretty interesting, huh? Like a nice little slapback. Listen to this. I think that's very nice. Let's hear what that sounds like with no reverb. That's just that slapback delay. perhaps the word I'm looking for actually is usable. Very usable stuff here. And that's basically something called a Tweed Deluxe, right? Tweed Lux, going into a Superstar 2x12 cabinet simulator. Not bad. Now we're going to add back in that reverb. That's called the North Star. And it also has some pretty cool blues tones. Very, very juicy, kind of overdriven amp kind of sounds. Check it out. And that blues drive right there is basically called the Emperor Drive amp, going into a Tweed Super 2x10. The amount of combinations you could get from just combining, mixing and matching different amps and cabs with different delays and even different distortions and gain stages is pretty freaking phenomenal. I'd also like to mention that this pedal in particular has the ability to update and include outside IRs, and so those different profiles will give you different sort of sounds and room sounds, air sounds, whatever. That's pretty huge. But again, that's not what I wanted to do. I did not want to geek out with this pedal, even though you can, and even though I usually would. I just wanted something where I could turn my mind off and play. For that, it's freaking perfect. Let me just put this little guy on here. So those were kind of my go-to tones if I was going to jam with somebody or if I wanted to practice on my own. When it came to performance, I needed tones for my songs. So for example, this particular tone was my Bewitching Pool tone, right? That's pretty great. I think that I was able to get to something that was kind of in the ballpark of what I'd want my solo tone to be. It did it. It got the job done. Long time since I played that, but you get the idea. And this right here was basically my go-to clean tone. Yeah, that's my clean. Freaking great. Basically doing something... Sorry. Now the cool thing about this pedal as well is that you could build on stages, or scenes as they call. So what that basically means is that if you hold the left button, you basically enter a on-off mode almost, where you can assign within your pedal board for this particular song, do you want to turn something off and on? In the left button, let's say I'd want it to be my regular sound, right? But when I press the left button again, it goes from red to green, which means something's going to be activated. Right? So you could mix and match and do so many things here, which is fantastic. And basically what's happening there, and I see the whole sort of ecosystem of this particular chain, if I press on and off, essentially what's happening is I'm turning off the chorus pedal. And then the remaining sort of right button on the pedal board becomes your switcher, which means you could only switch going right. In addition to live, I'd like to reiterate the fact that when playing a show, like when the sun is out, if you're playing outdoors, usually what happens with a lot of LCD screens or LED screens is that you can't really see the screen itself because the glare from the sun makes it more or less invisible. It all looks white. That's not the case with this pedal at all. With this pedal, you see everything pristinely, cleanly. It's wonderful. Mwah. And that comes very handy when switching between settings. That's ideal, right? And that's even more important when you're tuning, right? You want to see the note that you're tuning to. This screen is perfect. And dare I say, this tuner is pretty great too. The way the tuner works is you basically tap both buttons on the Ampero Mini at the same time really quickly, and then you'll enter the tuning mode. So that goes like this. Bam, you're in the tuner, and now I can tune E, A, wonderful. And I set it to a mode where it's essentially is acting like a kill switch, so to speak, where I could tune as long as I want, as much as I want, as loud as I want, and be on full volume, and it's killing the sound, right? It's on mute mode while I tune, so it's getting the sound, it's doing it to 440, tuning me up. However, you, the audience member who's hearing through the PAs, will not hear a thing unless I press mute and I change it to through. Now I'm tuning, and you could actually hear and see that the sound is coming through the pedal, so everyone else is going to hear you unless I go back to mute, and that's going to go wonderful. This is clearly something that was made by musicians for musicians. Can't emphasize that enough. I'd also like to mention additionally that this does have a looper function in it. However, I have not used it. Again, for my purposes, I did not need a looper pedal. Nice to know that it's there. And the way you access the looper pedal is by holding the two buttons at the same time. So you go 1, 2, bam, you're in the looper. So what was really cool about this particular tour, again, because it's my first electric, so to speak, tour since post-lockdown, I got to play a lot of songs that I could not have played, or I did play actually on acoustic with delay, but it didn't have the same rock and roll energy, right? Now, with this pedal, I could, because I go into tuner mode, I tune my guitar, because we got to get that drop D, and wouldn't you know it, fun, 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 fun. I've been able to have a lot of fun with this pedal. I have tones for all my songs. Like this is the tone for the Bewitching Pool solo. So, I mean, like, I'm covered. I mean, I've got delay upon delay, like. Again, so many great stuff, so much fun. I like the fuzz stuff on here too, which is very weird because I find that fuzz is where multi-effects pedals kind of get it wrong. But this in particular has a pretty solid pie, Big Muff, has a fairly decent replica of that. Check it out. Yes, that's an unreleased song. Coming soon, don't worry. But as you can see, they have a lot of different pedals, a lot of different styles. If you're wondering why the volume is kind of weird, it's because I set it so that it could be applicable in a live situation. I wanted everything to sort of be more or less flat. But for the most part, when it's just me, if it's, you know, a distorted song, I keep it distorted throughout the song. If it's a clean song, I keep it clean. So that's why everything kind of sounds like one level. But again, you could customize that to your own preference too. That explains the volume. You could customize so many different sounds. Here's one sound that I've been working on and just having fun with. It might be played for a song. If you see me live, you might know the one. Here goes. So that's the Ampero Mini in a nutshell. What are the use cases? Who is this pedal for? In order to answer that question, let's list the pros and cons. That way you can make an informed decision for yourself. Pros: bright screen, super clear, you can see everything, very responsive, can't complain anything about it. I was able, again, to do everything from the box. You could change the different colors, that's fantastic. Another pro: great sounds, great modelers, great amps, cabs, mics, XY placements on the mic in the cabinet and all that stuff. Pedals galore. I mean, you could get really, really granular with the sound you want. For anybody who's a tone junkie and a tone chaser, this and pedals like it, I imagine, are right up your alley. Another great thing is, again, the form factor. Look at this screen, first of all. You can see exactly what that says, right? That says, Ravi's clean. It's me. The screen's great, compact, small, ergonomic, what can you say? Tuner mode, super awesome. You can turn it on and off, make it loud or not loud, however you want. That means it's applicable in a gig setting. Another pro is the user interface. Again, it is so easy to use. I think even the most beginner of tech people, if you've never had an iPad or anything like that, you'd understand how this works more or less because the layout is fairly intuitive. Again, I'd like to reiterate that I did not use any programs when editing my sounds. This is all in the box. I didn't want to have to deal with any of that. I was on the road. I didn't want to sit down and do this. I think this is also great for people who have never experimented with tone. They can learn what sounds they like. They can learn what amps they like, what cabinets they prefer. What does this pedal do? What does this pedal do in this placement of the chain versus afterwards, before? You could mix and match stuff, and this will be your equivalent to more or less being a guitar tech, right? Even a producer. You'll learn things about the signal chain and signal processing. And this allows you to do that without actually having to buy a Mesa Boogie head and a Marshall cab. You can get the simulations, the amp sims, and be on your way. If you're really curious about learning about gear, that in and of itself is worth it. Oh, I just remembered another thing that makes this an incredible practice tool as well is the drum machine. It has a built-in drum machine with I think 100 something loops or something like that. Okay, so I had to look this up, and it has 100 different patterns as well as a looper. The looper itself offers 100 seconds of recording time, but the drum machine is so fantastic because you can literally practice with it. Let me just show you some stuff. So this right now is going to be the New Age pattern, 120 BPE, volume at 36. So you have that beat, right? Bossa Nova, blues, swing, jazz. You could get to metal, right? If we go to metal and then run the drum machine with our metal sound. So many options. Again, this is a wonderful practice tool to help your right hand, left hand coordination, syncopation, timing, all that feel. So you could even have a lot of fun by making this drum machine expressive as well. I just lowered the tempo, I lowered the volume so it could be a bit more slow and groovy. Loaded up the blues drum pattern here, and we're gonna run through that right now really quick. So there you go, a lot of options of how you can use this pedal. Another great thing, another pro, is the fact that you can use it as an audio interface. It has a USB-C port for firmware upgrades, as well as editing and managing the IRs and the pedals and all that stuff, which is just incredible. And it's available, I think they have like a free Mac PC software that you can download. Again, I didn't want to do that, but you have the option to get more granular with it if you do. I'd also like to mention that it does have effects built into it, presets for acoustic instruments, acoustic guitar and whatnot, and bass. So this is not excluded just to guitar players. Bass players, acoustic players, you can use this as well. That, along with the IR support from third-party IR creators, phenomenal. What more do you want? Alas, not all things are fantastic. There are some improvements I feel it could make. The first issue, I feel, is that there is no dual stereo output. There's only a single stereo output, meaning it is an unbalanced stereo output. So the way you could get a signal that is stereo out from the output is by getting a Y cable. I personally don't see the use of Y cables. I don't really understand their functionality. It's basically taking two mono signals in a mixer. Maybe somebody could explain that to me and how they work, but from what I understand, it's basically going to give you a left signal and a right signal, and you would put those into the two mono signals and then I guess pan them in the mixer or the fader, however you want. It's interesting, I guess, if you want to do it that way. Yeah, it's just a little weird, I guess. Now that I think about it, it does make sense, but I never had a Y cable. Maybe I'll get one for these purposes, but unless you're doing some kind of ping pong stuff, it's probably not that necessary, but it's a nice to have, I think, right? Again, not a deal breaker. Second thing, and this might just be my thing, but the headphone jack in my unit is a little loose. That kind of sucked when I was trying to edit the stuff again on the board. I was worried, is this gonna break or not? It didn't. It's just loose. So I don't know if that's a thing on only my pedal or whatnot, but it worked. It's still there. Everything's operational. Just a little concerning because none of the other input rings are loose or shaky. A third con, and this isn't really a con, and I'll tell you why, but is the fact that there are only two buttons on this pedal. So as you've seen, this pedal has so much functionality, so many options and varieties it can give you. The issue is that it only has two buttons that you can either use as a left-right selector switch or, you know, searcher through all your presets, or one button into a scene change, and then the right button will just go right. So that makes it a little tricky when you want to go back and forth between different songs with your foot. You'd have to actually kneel down and you know, sometimes keep going on the screen left and right to find your actual preset. I would also like to say that Ampero does offer a separate selector switch pedal that can be plugged into the expression input right here of the Ampero Mini, and that'll give you two additional switches. I guess these two buttons can be your designated scene switchers, and again, you could customize what buttons do what on the pedal itself. Right here, all the way on the top right, there's like a control and expression where you can specify exactly what each button does when clicked and how it works. So that's fantastic. But again, that's a con, but also, is it really a con if you're getting the portable Mini? I mean, I imagine if you're getting the portable Mini, it's because you're going to stay on one sound the whole set. Or not the whole set, but the whole song anyway, so you don't have to do too much switching. Imagine your use case, does that fit? The second to last con I want to add is the looper function. Now, again, I said I never used the looper function, but that does not mean I never entered the looper function. So maybe this is something you can edit when you are in the control expression panel, where again, like I said, you can decide which button takes you to where and does what on your pedal. But it has been my experience that when I try to get to the tuner function, where you have to just press once really quickly on both the buttons, I would press both the buttons a little too long, maybe longer than a second, which is probably the designated time amount, and it would take me into the looper. And the way you exit, for example, the tuner function is just you tap any of the buttons, either left or right, you'll be out of the tuner function immediately. For the looper function, you tap left or right, it's stop and start. So you're going to be recording a loop function that's going to happen. And that actually happened in my first show with this pedal. It wasn't that big a deal. It was just recording dead silence, but it would just be the same sort of dead air. Wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't super loud. I was able to get out of it once I actually bent over and exited and all that stuff. That is something that can be annoying, because there have been other times where I would try to go into the tuner pedal and I'd get into the looper pedal because I held it a little too long. And it sounds like something you could avoid, but it's a lot trickier than you think. At least for me. Maybe I'm different, but that leads me to my last con, which I think is kind of the biggest con. When you switch between sounds or scenes within your preset, there is a slight delay, a slight lag. It's kind of audible. You can notice it. And it's a bit upsetting because for all the things it does right, it's that one thing that I can only look to, that it's kind of like, oh, you could do this better. Now, when using it live, did anybody notice? Did anybody care? No. But us as musicians, we notice, right? If we're playing and we're jamming and we're trying to get into that flow and have our guitar speak to us and our amp and our pedals sort of get us into that flow state where it communicates with us, and we want to get into that energy, right? If there's a lag, if there's even like a delay in how anything works, it's going to throw you off a little bit. So instead of talking about it, let me show you what I mean. So in this case, I'm going to be playing a chord progression, and I'm going to activate a chorus to just jump in at the pinnacle of the song, right? Maximum emotional impact. Here we go. See if you notice it. Do you hear that? Now, it's more evident, I feel, on parts where you sort of like hit in a distortion. You want something precise, and precision is important. You hear that? Little delay, almost a little silence of like that's really the only thing I can find that's kind of like, you guys need to fix this. Other than that, it's pretty fantastic. But again, check this out, like you get what I mean. That's the idea. Only thing they need to fix as far as I'm concerned. But there you go. Those are my notes on the Ampero Mini. I think it's a fantastic pedal. I'm going to keep using this for gigs, especially solo one-off gigs. I think it is a fantastic pedal. I haven't even really jumped into all of it yet because there's just so many different sounds, but I can't wait. I mean, it's fantastic. It's going to be definitely on some records of mine. So if you have any questions about the Hotone Ampero Mini, drop them in the comments down below. I will answer them as best as I can. I love this pedal. I'm going to keep using it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Say what's up in the comments below. Again, it helps with the algorithm gods. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. And until next time, keep playing guitar.